Oh, okay, that was very, very powerful, wasn't it?
Yeah, proper
I-
AI sort.
It took my breath away. I'm so glad you played that. Okay, Amanda, let me start with you. So, Amanda, let's talk about the role that businesses play in promoting STEM education, because it's so important. Not only STEM education, but obviously the whole issue of digital literacy in this day and age in the communities that don't have access around Africa.
So, Leanne, I think that's the importance of that is we need partnerships. We need business to partner with our educational institutions. We need to make sure that there isn't a divide between rich and poor, communities that are under-resourced. We need to move away from that because it's the only way that we actually get to advance the youth in our country. And I think that we need to look at where funding opportunities are available to make sure that all children have the same access, the same facilities, the same opportunities. And in my opinion, this needs to be done in junior school. I think that if we can get our schooling right in primary school or even pre-primary school, where we're teaching relevance, it's a start. We should be teaching IT skills at that young level so that they are equipped to move into higher schooling, higher education, and into employment. What we do with our university students, all the funding that is available, and what we do with grad programs is phenomenal. But if we took care of them when they were in primary school, I think high school and university would take care of itself. So I think that we need to realign how organizations are asked to invest in youth employment through the skills development pillar on the BE scorecard. I think if we could shift that focus to schooling and not just post-schooling, it would make a remarkable difference. And that is direct partnerships of organizations with the Department of Education to sponsor schools, to get them up to scratch, to empower the teachers. We forget that our teachers also need to be upskilled so that they can continue to develop our youth. So my firm belief is directing our focus back to primary school, and the question to whoever will listen is, how do we do that?
That is the question. How do we do that? But because that is where the answer lies. The younger you get them, the more effective it is, and we need this. So I'm quite excited. I mean, you talk about the Department of Education and Government, and we see that in the portfolio of education, basic education. We've got the youngest minister who's now been appointed to that role, which is very refreshing. I think she's in her early 30s, Minister Kwalube. But you know that there's lots that gets in the way. We know that. But I suppose, Natalie, let me ask you to pick up that whole conversation and find out how do businesses collaborate more effectively with governments and try and assist to address this the digital inclusion gap and make it smaller and the barriers that affect the youth.
So I think, listening to everybody who has spoken today, the one thing that has come up a lot is, in terms of intention, we are all capable.
Yeah.
Action to back it up is the biggest gap, okay? And I was looking at the National Digital and Future Skills Strategy document. I think there's almost everything is included in there, all the intention, all the households the government wants to connect to the internet, all the schools, all the government departments, and. But I think, we need to, look, I even challenge everybody here to say next year, as opposed to just having a conference where we talk about all these good things. It should be, a top empowerment or top impact conference, where we are measuring the impact of what has taken place. I think as NTT Data, one of our skill sets is being an IT service provider. And, by leveraging our skills, leveraging funding from Nedbank, or any other institutions, or even, look, I can even say Elon Musk, okay? I know it sounds a bit radical, but, it's, somebody also mentioned, I think Ketumetsi, earlier mentioned that it's not a competition. So if we all come together with what, our best skills. So if government also relaxes some of the, licensing requirements for us to get foreign investment, for businesses that are investing in digital access, I think that's where we'll make impact at scale. We can also look to the BEE legislation. We've got the ICT sector codes, and right now, there's just, a generic target of what we need to do. But I think rather it now needs to be more specific to say, provide digital access in these schools, provide, digital infrastructure, and then there need to be tax breaks to incentivize business to do this. The economy is not on our side, but I think we need to act. We need to act more. We need tax breaks. We need, I think we've achieved the basics of BEE. We've achieved the faces for BEE, but what we are not achieving is the impact to back it up. So yeah, I think we call on the legislators to provide licensing easier. We can bring in a Starlink as an example, Elon Musk, and license Starlink for the rural areas. Yeah. Right? That way, it's not really in competition with our local service providers, but we address that gap. We call in NTT Data. We've got the skill set, and we provide the digital upskilling that's required, cybersecurity skilling that's required. So I think there's a lot that we can do together, but we need to act. It needs to stop being in a strategy document.
Absolutely. How successful is Starlink? I mean, just as a side note, anyone like a country that Starlink is in, it's
America.
Working? Is it
America.
Beautifully, yeah.
Beautiful.
In
Works
the neighbor
quick.
countries.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I know, I understand why it's not here, but, it's an answer to so many people's problems in a way that don't have access. Yeah. And, being shut out of digital technology, that's like, it's the days where books were illegal, that you weren't allowed to read, that a book was a bad thing. If you don't have data and you don't have that means to technology, you pretty much are doing the same thing. Ravi, I'm going to come to you now because I want to get examples from you of where, there's some success stories, because I also want to highlight those. But Chris, let me ask you while I've got your attention. I mean, emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, businesses basically, how do we get involved, to create innovative solutions that address the unique needs and challenges of the youth that we have on, here in South Africa and around us?
Yeah. Look, I think if we've been involved in AI, call it traditional AI, for a very long time. And for the last 18 months or so, Gen AI is very much front of mind. Perhaps a little bit of perspective can help in context. So if we can imagine a youngster in grade 12, when they were in grade 11 last year, we all got introduced to ChatGPT 3. Early versions really operated at the level of a toddler. Now that same youngster is in grade 12, GPT 4.0 operates at a high school level, perhaps lower uni level. Next year, we'll see the introduction of reasoning robots that'll be at PhD level. That's when our youngster is first year varsity. From there, it will move quickly into agentic modeling, innovators, and the last step will be probably something that approaches AGI and a machine that can run a full company. Jeez. By the time that we send this youngster into the working environment. So that's not only the challenge for the youth, it's a challenge for all of us. Because for the first time in technology, I've been listening to a lot of the conversation, our challenge is that previous technologies, we as older people knew more than the youngsters.
Yeah.
So we could teach them, we could be the mentors. We know equally little. And that is an enormous challenge. I think what we do specifically is we've got a very specific accelerator program where we really pick the cream of the crop and we say, what can we do to accelerate them onto a level where they can really solve world problems? But that solves the problem for a very few. We still have the masses that is unemployed, people in rural areas. In the data world, they say that data is the new fuel. Now, if data is the fuel for a company, then surely it must be the food for a society. The fact that we've got people in rural areas and not so rural areas without connectivity is shameful. It should be sorted out immediately. And I think if we get to a position where, we've worked a lot with the youngsters, and they've got so much energy, they pick things up so quickly. I think we'll be amazed if we just give connectivity to rural communities, what they can achieve.
Yeah.
Just start there. We'll be amazed by what they can do.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, having a device in your hand with data, you can do anything. And there must be so many success stories in that, Ravi, that you have seen how, having these partnerships and bringing, these sort of yes for youth, that's what you see. And I hope you have some stories you can share with us of how you've seen the youth change their lives because of it.
No, thanks. And it's also how we change the course of South African, the future.
Yeah.
Because just before lunch, someone was saying, 40% of the population can't send an email, and I'm thinking, oh dear. If you consider, and I think that's not that figure's not far from what the actual reality is, the way in which we are heading into a very technology-intensive scenario where so much of what you do here is going to be affected by AI, biotech, all of those things are going to change a whole range of things. How do we prepare young people for the future, which we can't always foresee? It's going to be cybersecurity, this, that. So I think from a YES program, the success is really about building the infrastructure to adapt to the changes that are coming through. So, lots of companies join, including NTT, and they sponsor. Then we have a lot of implementation partners help us navigate career paths in key sectors, including merchants and so on. And then we find other companies bring in technologies that can help youth prepare. So, for example, all 152,000 youth in the program are now starting to access AI training. From like the basic. I've never used a computer before. I couldn't send an email. Now you'll get like the basics. Then the second tier is learn how to do prompting on ChatGPT. The third for the real techies might be like an AI certified program. So we want to make sure whatever sector you are in, you have some degree of technology or AI competence because it's going to come at you from all different angles. But we ourselves are targeting key sectors. Like I mentioned earlier, we have really built, I think, the biggest program for drone pilots.
Sure.
And what's happened now, the Western Cape, where we actually started running it, is now launching a drone strategy. Sorry, I think I stole some politician's thunder there. But based on what's happening. So now we can pick and choose as a country, where do we want to see youth being developed for these future technologies as they're coming through.
Amazing. I love it. It is exciting. I know it's daunting, but it's very, very exciting where we're sitting. I mean, I see my dad, who's 77 years old, and his new best friend in the whole wide world is ChatGPT. I mean, he asks it everything. Like, he doesn't believe a word that comes out of our mouths. He says, hang on, I just want to ask ChatGPT. And it has. I mean, it's just so nice to see that happening. But, I mean, Amanda, how can businesses design and invest in training programs to effectively upskill and empower the youth in the African tech sector?
So as Chris already mentioned, by the time we've educated the youth, everything that they've been taught is near redundancy. So we have to be quicker to market. We've got to be able to pivot and realign as new technologies come into play. And as organizations, we have to continuously look at ways of developing our own employees and developing the youth that come into our organizations at a rapid pace. So we need to know what's coming down the line, and we need to make sure we are prepared for it and ready to execute as soon as it hits.
Yeah. I mean, for you, Natalie, I asked Ravi for some good examples or some sort of things that you've seen working in the environment that you're in, and some examples of that.
Look, I'll say we've got Start in-house within our business. Kirsty made mention of our Saturday school program. And I think what I particularly like about that is that we've built this ecosystem. We've built this ecosystem whereby we are educating coming out of school, and then we bring in these youth into business, whereby they are, billable resources, under Chris's guidance, and, then they're fast-tracked into leadership. And I think it's that inclusion piece. It's where we are intentional about not only the diversity, but the inclusion, fast-tracking them into leadership, just increasing our innovation as a business, whereby it's Natalie, it's Ravi, it's Amanda, it's different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. So even as we innovate, I think it's important to bring in that inclusion piece, because if we only have 10 Natalies in a room, we can only think like Natalie to a certain extent. So I think that's one thing. Another one is BRIC, B-R-C-K, in Kenya, where they came together with the Kenyan Department of Education, Microsoft, Facebook, and I think there's a couple of others. And they have, connected over 1 million households. They've provided affordable internet, offline internet. I'm not sure how it works. Chris can talk to that. But, whereby you've got internet, but you can also do stuff offline. And I think that's amazing. That's the power of public and private sector partnerships. Kirsty mentioned a lot of other ones whereby NTT has partnered, like in sport, in youth development. But, yeah, there's room to do so much more.
So, Chris, if you have to sit down and you have to educate and sort of talk to the youth of today, and this, I suppose, is a very important conversation to have with people, because, what you've said about, one skill that you may now be learning will be sort of completely outdated by the time you actually get to practicing it, which is quite scary. So what would you recommend to attract, retain, and upskill the youth of today so that what they do is relevant? What do we need?
Sure. Leanne, it's a tough question. I think I look at the shift we've made. 3-4 years ago, if you look at our accelerator program, we were looking for postgrads. So you come with stats, maths, physics, and you get an interview. I think with the introduction of new technology now, we're starting to look for other skills. We're looking for a deep-seated, almost obsessive curiosity. We're looking for stubbornness in thinking. And more we're starting to see that, hang on, we're getting a bunch of kids coming from the non-traditional channels that are performing very well in that space. I think the ability to adapt and to adapt quickly is an absolute ticket to the game. You must almost be able to cancel everything you know quite often and start relearning where it comes from. So, if one can say one thing, and that's how we test, is we say, what have you done in this space? Because the barrier to entry doesn't exist anymore. I don't need a fancy computer. I don't even need to know how to code. But what have you done? Have you shown interest? And have you built anything of significance, even if it was on your mobile phone? Yeah. And that's what we're interested in. So be curious and keep pushing. Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, very interesting. Can I ask you to wrap this up for us, Ravi, as we come to the end of this discussion?
Yes, well, I do think there are huge opportunities for us. And I think as a country, the world is bifurcating between those countries that have all the tech, who can make the COVID vaccines very fast, and those who are like, please give us some.
Yeah.
And we really need to make sure that we are also in that first group in terms of having people who can respond to the challenges, we can make the technology, we have youth who know how to use technology, because, even as much as we need to know how to use technology, technology can also prepare us for that. So one of our big challenges is in schools and being able to teach, AI can help you with that.
Yeah.
A teacher can have an AI assistant. So there are ways in which we can deploy technology to actually help us prepare for the world of technology.
Amazing. And we're going to talk more about that shortly. But thank you so much to every single one of you for adding your inputs into this conversation. Thank you.